Welcome to JHGWoodcraft. I'm Jedi Hammond, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be showing you how to make a sword, or a shield and a sword. Apparently, I don't know the difference. As you'll notice, this one says Cancer Slayer on it. The reason being is I'm making these for my nephew, who is indeed fighting cancer. So at the end of the video, I'll provide links where you can get your own Cancer Slayer sword and shield and help support him in his fight. Grab a drink and let's get started. We have our shield that we cut out on the CNC. You could use a router or a jigsaw, and it's sitting on this form to allow us to get the shape that we ultimately want. Now that we've got it all bent, we've got it on the curvature we want. I'm going to loosen these up, pull the boards, blow them off, and then we're going to put a layer of glue, put them right back, let it dry. You'll notice it bounced out. That's okay, because that's one of the reasons why we're gluing it, why we're doing multiple layers. I wanted it to just sit that way over time. I could just leave it for a longer period of time or even add some moisture to it, and that would eventually get us there. But that's the advantage of doing multiple layers. So one more time. Just gonna take this piece, I'm gonna glue the heck out of it. Make sure you go all the way to the edge. I'd rather have some bleed out that I've got, or some squeeze out that I have to sand off, than not have it all the way to the edge. Yeah, so things I would have done different already, and I knew this and I just didn't prep for it, was get a cheap roller or one of those, got one of those plastic rollers, silicone rollers rather. Silicone is amazing. Like on this brush, I'm going to let it dry and then I'll just pull it off. It's incredible how it doesn't stick, the glue does not stick to it at all. You get all caked in there and then just cracks right off. And a couple dry spots. So at the end of the day, I'd rather have some squeeze out than dried up areas. But you know what? At this point, this more likely for the other areas of the material to come loose than these glued areas. Okay. That's what I got that for, and then I didn't use it. Now, one of the things I'm going to do may look like I'm not lining them up perfectly, and I'm not. The reason being is as I tighten this in here, it's going to want to push this top one down. So I start out with it a little bit, about an 1/8 of an inch high. That way, as it pulls it down, it should even out. And it's not a huge deal because at the end of the day, I'm going to cut them all. I'm going to route off the edges anyway. Okay, we'll just do the same thing. Back into the old mold with the ratchet straps. Just this around going the right way. And this one, I'm going to move this strap just a little bit. There we go. Reason being was I was starting to grab the edge of that shield here with the ratchet. I don't want that. One more. All right, that's perfect. Now I've got almost exactly right alignment here. Like I said, I'm going to route it off when it's done. Let this dry. Once it's dried up, then we're ready to clean up the edges, paint it, and put us a handle. All right, now that the glue is all dried up, we're going to pull it off of the ratchets here. And everything goes well. It shouldn't move when I pop it off. Or maybe just a little bit, but as long as it's just slight, right? So there we got a little bit of a bounce. It's tight back in there. It's looking exactly like I want it. So see, straight down, the curve is exactly where we want it. And we got us a shield. All right, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean off the edges. We're going to kind of use either a sander or router and take it down all of the edges. We'll sound the top and the back. And by the time we're done, we're going to put in straps on the back. We're going to paint the front. I'll do some lettering on the front, and then we'll stain around that. All right, so next step is we need to make some handles. So I like making handles out of leather. You could also make it out of metal. But especially since this is a kid shield, leather is going to be much more forgiving to hands. You could leather wrap a piece of metal too, though. That'd be another way to do this. So just took a piece of leather, put a couple folds in it, so it essentially rounds it out. I'm just taping it to hold that rounding together till I fasten it, because once I fasten it, that will hold the rounding together on its own, because I'll have a screw through both ends. But until then, put something on it to hold it all together till I'm done. This makes the process easier. So I'm actually going to do two pieces. So one is the handle, so it'll sit like this, right? And then another piece that would go around the forearm. So you'd normally use your non-opposing arm as your shield arm, and your primary, whichever handed you are, as your sword arm. So it would fit like this, because you want to hold it. So it's going to be at an angle. This would hold like that. Right? Ha! Can't see me? No, you can. Or you can't hit me. No, you can't. All right, so doing this just so I can get some general marks. Obviously, the person this is going for is a smaller person than my big fat hands. But if I can get the general areas, that should work for anybody. So there's my line for that. And then holding it here, and for that. Biggest difference would just be how fat this piece would be, because for my big fat hand, it needs to be bigger. For a smaller person's hand, it doesn't have to be quite that fat. So what I'll do is I'll put a couple screws through here and here, and then we'll have a flat strap that'll go here. And we'll actually bolt it from the other side. That will also make it somewhat adjustable. If we wanted to pull it off, put another hole through the leather, we can make it wider or thinner. And then same thing on this side. I'm going to start this with, I'm just going to put some screws through it to the outside. This is not how I'll leave it, because we'll actually use bolts. But the screws will allow me to get that right point. And like I said, I want to leave it actually a little big, because with the big, it can be adjusted at need. Oh, panic moment. Still good there. I'm going to have to go a little longer than I thought on this. I'm glad I thought of it before I went through. I'll pull this up just ever so slightly. Okay. And first part of our handle. Ha ha! All right, so let me take another piece of leather here. Now you could use any kind of material, but leather is nice in that you can actually put things like screws through it that's going to hold. If you're using some other material, I would highly recommend adding some washers. That might not necessarily be that wouldn't be a bad idea for this either, but it's not as necessary. Okay, so I'm just going to do a single fold over. Same thing, I want to make sure I'm not going to hit
our words there. Move that backwards. Let's go this way. Well, no, I don't. I want it this way. No. The thing I could do is roll this and sew the corners in. Or the edges, so they were sewed together. Put a hem on them, I think is the right word. Also would not be a bad idea. In this case, not putting a hem, but now, if I were doing this for me, I'd have that big, huge flap, because I got big, huge, fat arms. In this case, I expect that the arm of the person using this is probably closer to the size of my hand instead of my fat arm. So I'm going to do like this. And I'll leave enough that if it needs to be adjusted, it can be done by the owner. Okay. Again, this would work for a smaller person. It's not going to work for me, so I'm just going to grab the handle. And now, this off. Ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and pull these tapes off, trim this end up a little bit, or maybe I will pull this over like this. This one. That'll give them a little more long-term flexibility. You want to stretch out here? And that's it. And yeah, that's what I pull this off. Pull this over like this. Push both sides. And then roll. Okay. Stretch that off. And we are ready to go, ready for battle. Actually, one more step. Once this fully cures, because it's dry but not cured, I'm going to give it overnight, and then I'm going to go ahead and spray a polyurethane over the top just to give it a little bit of extra protection. But other than that, we now have our Cancer Slayer shield ready to go. Next thing's get the sword, which I've done a carving of. Got to make some adjustments. Didn't like how it turned out. And then we'll have that sword and shield ready. And if you want to be a Cancer Slayer as well, we have made some keychains. Look like this. And if you go to our store, JHGWoodcraft.com, and go to /shop, and these keychains will be available for $20 or $22, I believe, actually. And the profits from it will go to actually directly to my nephew, who we're making this shield for, and who is himself fighting cancer. So I think couldn't go to a better cause. Hopefully you guys agree, and we'll reach out, grab yourself a keychain or 2 or 20. I'll also put a link where you can give to them directly if you so desire. But other than that, now it's my turn to go have a drink. Here, stain's dry. We're going to put our handle back on. Stain and sealer. Put some polyurethane on here as well. And I decided to just go with using the screws because they're nothing going out the other side. I think there might be this chance of somebody hurting themselves with it. Maybe, hopefully. I mean, I guess I am making a sword and shield, so there's only so much you can expect. sawdust in my shop. All right, so there you have it. Cancer Slayer sword, or shield and sword. Hi-ya! If you're interested in your very own Cancer Slayer sword shield, we do have keychains that'll be available on our website. You can pick up your very own. Here's what they look like. See that? Getting close. I'll put the link in description, JHGWoodcraft.com. And all of the profits for these will go to actually the little boy, the young man that this sword and shield are going to, as he is in the midst of fighting leukemia. So we appreciate any support you can provide. I'll also put the link down to their GoFundMe. And with that, it's time for me to go have a drink. Now the day is up. Y'all have a great one.